Welcome back to Jersey Matters. Smoke from these raging wildfires in the western part of the United States have made their way all the way to New Jersey and have caused a health alert to be issued for parts of the state. So how did the smoke from these fires travel 3,000 miles to get to us? We get answers from the National Weather Service in New Jersey.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I think the number one question about this smoke that is coming from the western states because of the wildfires there is how was it able to travel between 2,500 and 3,000 miles to get to us?
Yeah, so what happens with these wildfires and the smoke is that the smoke, depending on how big the fire is and what is burning, it'll travel very high up into the atmosphere. And eventually what happens is the smoke gets caught up in the wind patterns aloft. And depending on how the wind patterns travel, and this is what's called the jet stream, the smoke will get trapped in the wind patterns aloft the jet stream and can travel many thousands of miles, as you just mentioned. And it'll get dispersed some as it travels through the air, but it won't get completely dispersed for many days. So it's getting trapped in that jet stream and making it all the way down into the East Coast. And so the wildfires are all across the West, from California to Oregon, Washington, and even up into Canada. So they're covering a very large, widespread area out there, and there's just a tremendous amount of smoke. And so while it's traveling aloft in the air mass aloft, eventually, as it gets across further downstream, it begins to settle towards the ground. And depending on the stability of the air downstream, it can make it all the way down to the ground like it did here across the East Coast.
And we're just the unlucky ones. Will this continue?
Well, what has happened today, actually, if you've noticed today, you can actually see blue sky today and actual clouds in the sky here in New Jersey. And the reason for this is we actually had a frontal boundary come through last night, and that happened. What it did is it pushed kind of a cleaner air mass into our region. So while we were unfortunate to have it the last several days, actually the what you could call the dirty air mass with all the smoke in it has actually pushed south and even further west into the Midwest, into Indiana and Ohio, and in that region, they're getting it now too, because the wind pattern aloft has just kind of shifted a little bit. So that dirty air is just kind of pushed a little further southward. So while we've cleaned out a little bit today, until the fires get contained and the wind pattern, once it kind of shifts again, it could return possibly this weekend into early next week. Now, will it be as bad as it was the other day? That's something it's hard to really tell at this point until we have some computer model guidance that can tell us how thick the smoke and how bad the air mass can be. But they only can run kind of a couple of days in advance. So right now we do know that at least the next couple of days is going to be a normal kind of day air quality wise, but it could return as we go later into the weekend.
And other than that, we just have to watch to see how long the fires last and how they're doing in battling the fires to decide how bad this is going to be and how long it's going to be.
Exactly, right. Yeah, it can take days, weeks, even months, depending on the size of the fire and where the fire is actually burning. If the fires are in more elevated terrains and higher on mountains, it's really tough for the firefighters to get out there. But they do a tremendous job doing what they do. And I know we just ask people to keep the firefighters and the people who are unfortunately being affected by the fires. If anybody has any property damage, just keep them and your thoughts and prayers, because fires can be a really dangerous thing out there.
Well said. I'm glad you brought that up. This is a recurring event, isn't it? We had the same thing happen last year with the fires in Oregon. Are we expecting to see more of this?
Well, and you're right. Fires can happen any time of the year across the country, and out west, it's much more prevalent out west. But even here in the East Coast, we can have fires here in New Jersey. There's different seasons here in the New Jersey area. The springtime is the most prevalent season here. As we go through like the middle part of March into April, especially April and into May, we can have fires. So even if we have fires here locally, we can have smoke impacts. But as you mentioned, last year we had smoke pretty, I don't think it was as significant as it was the last couple of days, but we had the smoke reach us from the wildfires out west last year. And even several years ago, there was some fires that were ongoing in Alaska that cover such a large area in Alaska that actually made it to the East Coast as well. The wind patterns aloft just set up in the perfect way. So they reached our area all the way from Alaska several years ago. Many people may not remember that, but I want to say that was maybe like 10 or 15 years ago. So it does occur every year. The wildfires occur every year out west, multiple times throughout the year.
A health advisory was issued in New Jersey. I imagine that was because for breathing problems. Is that just for specific individuals, those who have asthma and those who are prone to breathing problems, or is that for everyone?
Well, yes, the air quality alerts are sent out by the State Department of Environmental Protection agencies, and they're especially issued for those, as you mentioned, with lung and heart diseases and the more vulnerable population that have health issues, the elderly and the very young. Those are the most concerned, but anybody, we always say to avoid being outside as much as possible on those types of days, because anybody can have breathing issues when the air quality is that bad. We say take frequent breaks if you're outside, drink plenty of fluids. Almost a similar situation when we have heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. We say to do the same things, drink the fluids, avoid being outside, go inside in the air conditioning as much as possible, because if you're inside in air conditioning, that at least will help filter out some of the air. Now, it won't get everything out, obviously, all the time, but it will help be it inside as much as possible.
Well, Lee, as you said so eloquently just a moment ago, our thoughts are absolutely with those firefighters fighting these wildfires out west, and we pray for their success, because the whole country, it seems, can be affected by these fires. And so we hope they get them contained as quickly as possible.
Special thanks to the National Weather Service in New Jersey. Next on Jersey Matters.
I'm Phil Andrews, and coming up on Jersey Matters, we'll tell you why this needs to be updated and valid if you plan on traveling outside the United States anytime soon.